Good morning, dear listeners. So, children, today we are going to do the eighth poem of class 10th English reader book, that is First Flight. So, children, the title of the poem is The Trees. So, the trees, the poem is written by Adrian Rich, and that's a highly symbolic poem. What is symbolism? What is a symbolic poem? But a symbol means something that stands for something else. For example, red rose or red color, right? Red color is a symbol of danger. Red rose is a symbol of love. Ladder is a symbol of progress. White color is a symbol of peace and prosperity. So different colors, black color symbolizes mourning, mourning, right? So different colors symbolize different situations. Some objects are there which symbolize different situations. So the poem Trees by Adrian Rich is a highly symbolic poem. It means the writer wanted to say something else instead, like she has not expressed directly in the poem, she has not expressed her thoughts directly in the poem. You have to read in between the lines. You need to take out that symbolic meaning. You need to take out those points which are indirectly conveyed by Adrian Rich, right? So the poem is that it tells us about the plants who want to escape the four walls of the house and live there in the forest. Children, what is the actual place of the cows and dogs which are being domesticated by the people in their houses? Their actual place is not the four walls of the house. They are given freedom by nature, and they too, like other stray dogs and stray cows, want to live a free life. They want to get rid of the foundation like which has been imposed by the people upon them. So, children, the trees poem is also, falls in that category which I am talking of. The trees, the plants which are planted by the people inside their houses in some vase or some small gardens they have cultivated. So those plants want to escape from the four walls of the house and they want to move in the forest, right? So what interpretation I got after reading this poem, when I came to know that this is a symbolic poem, I got the idea that probably Adrian Rich is making the word trees symbolic of women, symbolic of females. See, plants are kept inside the four walls of the house by human beings, and women, especially in that era, were kept inside the four walls of the house by men, right? So what I find, that trees are also symbolic representation of women, those women who really want to move out of the enclosed walls of the society, and they want an escape in the world of freedom and liberty, right? So the poet objectively describes the escape of plant to its natural environment. Natural environment means open space, that means forest, right? So that symbolic meaning doesn't adhere to the fact that women too want to go to the forest. So that would be a literal one. The poem actually would convey the idea that how females have been curbed within the four walls of the house, within the walls of society, that they are not able to express themselves. They are not able to do whatever they wish to do, right? So let's move to the text of the poem. See what the writer addresses. Can there be a forest without trees? No, there cannot be a forest without trees. Where are the trees in this poem and where do they go? So, the trees expressed in the poem are inside the four walls of the house, and where do they go? The writer would try to give the answer, and we have to find it, in fact, right? So, starting with the text of the poem. The trees inside are moving out into the forest that was empty all these days, where no bird could sit, no insect hide, no sun bury its feet in shadow. The forest that was empty all these nights will be full of trees by morning, right? I hope no word is there which you would like to locate in dictionary. All are like very easy words, very easy vocabulary has been used by Adrian Rich, right? The poet imagines that the plants which are sowed there inside the four walls of the house, so those plants are struggling to move out into the open space. Those plants are struggling to move out into the forest area, right? So they indirectly say that the space which was once used to be occupied by large forests is empty now. Why empty now? The space is empty due to the foolish activities of human beings. You know, foolish activities of human beings. You must have been seeing the roads, children, whenever we go to, suppose from Bathinda or from this area Malot, we go to Chandigarh. We would see beautiful lanes of roads. Like if one travels during this quarantine period, so when there is very less traffic, you would really see, you would really feel that you are going on the road of a very developed country. You would feel that you have come to a different area, like those yellow light lamps, that cleanliness, and that wide road, you know, the one that has been created by human beings by cutting all the trees, by cutting the trees that were planted by the sides of road, right? So that's why the poetess says that the space which was once used to be occupied by trees, so that space has been emptied due to the foolish activities of human beings, right? There are no trees, no forests, and so children, if there are no trees or if there are lesser trees, so there would be less space for the insects and birds to stay. You know, insects, they keep their habitat in trees, birds build their nests on trees. So in this case, when the human being is hell bent on removing the forests at a very fast pace, when the human being is making effort to clean the forest, and in such a way, human beings are not only destroying our vegetation, our forest areas, they are they are also destroying the homes of insects and birds, right? So, as there are no trees, there is no shadow even. As the poet says, that no insect hide. Where no bird could sit means there are no homes for birds, there are no homes for insects. Next is no sun buried feet in shadow. It means even there is no shadow, right? The sunlight does not make any pattern, any stay on the ground, as it used to do while passing through the tree leaves. Whenever the tree leaves are like not so close, so the sunlight easily passes through those leaves and it used to fall at the ground, and it make a lovely pattern. So sometimes it makes a lovely pattern. So that's what the poet is talking of. The poet says that even the sunlight does not make that pattern, that design on the ground as it used to do while passing through the tree leaves. Right? So the poet feels that the empty land, empty means the land which has been cleaned by the human beings, right? So that bare land without forest will be once again green with trees, right? Will be once again green with trees and plants, right? When it will be green? Once the indoor plants get success in breaking the barriers of walls of the house. What he says, read the last line again. The forest that was empty all these nights will be full of trees by morning. From where the poet start, the trees inside are moving out into the forest. It means the poet says that the trees that are there inside the four walls of the house are moving out. It means they are moving outside the four walls of house, and the forest which has become empty now, it will again look green, right? It will again bloom. So what the writer wants to convey actually, so the writer wants to convey that trees are symbolic of women. The poem is written in an era when the poetess could have, written openly about female, liberty. But she has used a symbolic idea to create this poem, probably due to two reasons. One is she didn't want to, express her thoughts directly and invite any kind of argument, and second reason may be the literary device of using symbols makes any piece of writing a very beautiful one, an adorned piece of writing, right? So the trees are symbolic of women, like who had been kept slaves for centuries by men of the house, right? The house has been compared to society. Like society, the mindset of society, the mindset of this male dominated society is to captivate women inside the four walls of the house. The forest in the world where women will enjoy their freedom is being talked about by Adrian Rich. She wants to convey that the forest, it means the forest is symbolic of the outside world. How trees will come out of the house? Trees cannot move by themselves. So that's why I am saying, children, this is a highly symbolic poem. The writer is saying that females of this world are struggling to get out of the four walls of the house and express themselves as individual beings, right? Express themselves as independent ladies. I hope stanza 1 is clear to all of you. Next is, all night the roots work to disengage themselves from the crack. Disengage means, engage means to be busy. Disengage means to get free, right, from the cracks. Cracks, we call it small openings, right? From the cracks in the veranda floor, right? The leaves strain towards the grass. Leaves strain towards, try to like bend towards the glass. Small twigs stiff with exertion. Long cramped boughs, right? The one who has shrunk, right? Long cramped boughs. Boughs means branches. Shuffling under the roof like newly discharged patients. Newly discharged, the one who has just been discharged from the hospital, right? Newly discharged patients half dazed means they are still in shocked situation, moving to the clinic doors. You know, beautiful message. The poet here personifies the trees, the roots, its branches, leaves, etc. Why the poet personifies? Because probably an idea is to be conveyed that how each one is struggling to break the shackles, break the chains, right, in order to return to the forest. Many feminist writers have been there. Many feminist people are there. A lot of feminists are there in this country and overall in this world as well, right? So, what is their aim? Their aim is to provide women with the equal rights. Their aim is to keep women's liberty, women's freedom, women's rights as par with men, right? So the poet conveys that the roots of the indoor plants are working to emerge free, right? To emerge free through the cracks in the veranda floor. When the branches of a tree are spread, so if a tree is placed there inside a house and its branches spread, its branches spread, and we may see some cracks in the floor, right? So we may see some cracks, and leaves are trying to cross the glass barrier of the windows. And when leaves are spread so much, up to so much extent, you may say, they too begin to fall out of the house. They begin to show themselves out of the house, either through the windows, that's just an example, or they may show their existence by becoming taller than the you may say boundary wall of the house, right? Similarly, means twigs too have been putting all their energy to get themselves free from the stifling atmosphere, that suffocating atmosphere of the house, and they want to move to the open forest, with a large blue sky overhead, right? So the movement is very slow, and you may call it unsteady as well, like the movement is unsteady and slow, like the movement of a patient. The poet has compared the movement of trees and females to the movement of a patient who has been just discharged from the hospital, who has just got free from the hospital, and who doesn't have that much energy to walk fast and leave the place. So the poetess wants to convey that the speed of women in taking steps to liberate themselves may be a bit slow, right? So women may be a bit slow in getting out of their houses, but they make a continuous progress. They are continuously making efforts in order to make their life free and independent, right? So I hope this stanza is clear to all of you. Next is, I sit inside, doors open to the veranda, writing long letters, in which I scarcely mention the departure of the forest from the house. The night is fresh, the whole moon shines in a sky still open. The smell of the leaves and lichen still reaches like a voice into the rooms. My head is full of whispers which tomorrow will be silent. Whispers, low voices, slow voices, right? So, scarcely, he means hardly, like that happens once in a blue moon, right? What the poet wants to convey. One word was there, lichen, algae. So, the poetess wants to convey that, like unaware of the plant's silent departure from the house, the poet is busy writing letters. The poet is busy writing something. Writing letters is again just an example. Writing letters means it's night time, and there is freshness in the open sky, and that's the night time with moon shining above, right? So however, the poet is sensitive enough to notice the smell of leaves and algae that reaches her, right? So there are very few people who can actually appreciate nature. Everyone sitting under the shade of tree does not have that capacity to praise it. But there are some sensitive people, you may say poets and writers fall under this category. So there are some sensitive people who really appreciate the beauty of nature and who can even smell the leaves, who can even smell the algae that keeps binding itself under along with the branches of the tree. Presently, the mind of the poet is occupied with a number of thoughts, and she really hopes that the next day would be relieving enough, right? So, as she is saying, my head is full of whispers, which tomorrow will be silent, right? In the poet does not mention that the trees and their preparation to go out of the house because she is willing they go out, right? It seems that the poet had been preparing these trees to go out. It seems that the poetess is helping these trees to go out of the four walls of house. Symbolically, that means that the poetess is one of the feminist writers. As I told you, feminist is a person who fights for the rights of women, who fights for the rights of females, right? So the poet is expressing the idea that she has been helping the females to step out of their houses, right? She has been helping the females to provide them with revolutionary ideas and thoughts so that they can step out of their houses and live a free life, right? Next stanza, that is, the poet says, listen, the glass is breaking, right? So, listen, the grass is breaking. The trees are stumbling forward into the night. The trees are stumbling, to move unsteadily, to move in an unstable manner. So, stumbling forward into the night. Winds rush to meet them. Winds rush to meet them. The moon is broken like a mirror. Its pieces flash now in the crown of the tallest oak. Oak, that's a kind of tree, oak tree. So, the poetess invites the attention of the reader to an exotic moment, to a very beautiful moment when the indoor plants have been successful in breaking the glass barriers of the house and they are now slowly moving towards the forest. She says, listen, the glass is breaking. Glass means the window of the object of which the windows of the house are made, right? The poetess says that the glass is breaking, right? The glass of those windows is breaking. The trees are stumbling forest into the night. It means she probably wants to convey indirectly that females are moving out of their house slowly. It means they are becoming self-dependent. They have started working outside the home as well, right? It means next she talks of that winds rush to meet them. It means there are many people out there. There is a category of people who boost their morale, who boost the morale of females, who appreciate their step that they have taken of coming outside the four walls of society, right? So therefore the exuberance with which they rush to meet the second coming of the trees is a ray of hope, right? So these attempts by females have been a very big step in the history, right? So she says that the moon that makes the artificial plant look brighter than the natural one breaks like a mirror image, breaks like an image that has been captured in a mirror, and the dream, it evaporates into the air. So, the tallest oak tree stands majestic it means that is indicating a new era, the second era of green forests. It means women were having very less rights, and like constantly they have been fighting for their rights, for the achievement of freedom, right? So they may get a success now, and the poetess is very hopeful of getting that success, right? So as she wants to convey that, means while nature is free and unbounded, man prefers to live in bounded spaces and also want to curb nature. Man curbs plants, kill animals, tame birds, right? So the speaker talks about the indoor plants that are grown in houses in small pots and pans and vases, you may say, right? So these indoor plants cannot be a replacement of the forests, right? So these indoor plants are not at all useful for birds and insects, right? So birds only sit on the branches, birds only make their hide on the trees that are there in the forest. So by removing the trees from the forests, human beings have done a big mistake, because they have snatched the houses, they have snatched the inhabitants of birds and insects, right? So the poetess is sensitive enough to feel the smell of those leaves and algae, that branches, that like she has written the poem in order to express her gratitude towards nature. Actually, she is the author that she has that feministic point of view, and she wants to share that idea with the readers, right? So if we want to conclude the poem the trees, it states that it states the conflict between man and nature. Means man has caused much harm to nature. Like he might have acquired a lot of material goods that I told you, in the form of beautiful roads, right? But he has forgotten the importance of nature and large forests, right? He has forgotten that he has snatched the living places of many other creatures. Many animals cannot survive without forests. So man has judged nature wrongly, right? Wrongly, to be weak, and the nature is showing disastrous consequences these days. You may be able to relate to the poem and to the real world, right? Any natural disaster cannot be prevented. Like though we are I agree that we are moving in a technologically advanced world, right? The destructive forms of nature, you may say, for example, flood, earthquake, volcanoes, etc., or even this virus, right? So these teach man the real power that lies with nature, and it can do anything, anything and everything. So, take care of nature. The poem gives a beautiful message. Listen to the audio again and again for better understanding of the poem, since this is a totally symbolic poem. So, I hope you must have liked it. So, do the question answers given at the end of the poem, and shortly I would share the answer key of the same. So, thank you. Stay blessed.